Welcome to the Leadership in Changing Time series. I think this is a great initiative and a great program by Professor Tariq Khan. It's very important, especially these particular times that we're all living. So now we are honored to have Carla Hassan. I have Carla Zakem-Hassan joining us. So you have a really impressive experience in companies such as JPMorgan, Citi. I'm a Citi banker, former Citi banker too. Yeah. PepsiCo, Toys R Us, and Kellogg, but they also have a relationship, which is really nice to see and read about your work. She's going to share her perspective on marketing trends, particularly in the finance industry, and the challenges that leadership is having. So please join me in welcoming Carla Zakem-Hassan to this conversation with Professor Tariq Khan.
Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Mendoza for the kind introduction and being here. And Carla, welcome back to the campus.
Thank you.
No matter wherever you go in life, you always love coming back to the campus.
That's right.
You're seeing some tense faces because this is a midterm week. So relax, have fun, forget about all those exams.
Just for now. Just for now.
Yeah. So we'll officially start our fireside chat.
Yeah.
And this is a C-suite leadership class and leadership perspective. So let's go back to Thunderbird. You know, when you were in school and graduated, from there to all the way to C-suite and becoming the chief marketing officer of JPMorgan, one of the largest banks. Share that journey with us. You know, how did it happen when you were sitting there to where you're sitting today?
Yeah.
Share that journey for our students.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everybody. Seriously, take a deep breath, enjoy the next hour, pretend like you're at a coffee shop, whatever you want. Midterms can wait, although your professors will probably not be happy to hear me say it, but midterms can wait. We're gonna have a fun conversation. So you know, it's funny. So I can actually see you guys. The journey everybody thinks is so linear. Particularly because if you look at my career, I'm a career marketer. And if you look at my career, you say, oh, she's just had marketing roles in these big companies for years. And so she was deliberate about that strategy. The reality is, I'm not sure I was deliberate about it. When I was sitting in your seats, I actually had no clue what I wanted to do. And I was pretty open to anything. I knew I wanted to do something global. That's what I knew I wanted to do, for sure. Given my background, I had grown up in the Middle East. I was an immigrant to the US. So I knew I wanted to do something global, something international at some point, but I didn't know what. And then I took a course actually in research and marketing insights. And I was like, wait a minute. You're going to tell me that I can understand the psychology of a human, what they fear, what they dream of, what they want to do, and then I can actually create product services, whenever it's communication, that's going to change their mind. But it can actually change them. So for me, that's kind of the turning point of when I knew I wanted to do something in marketing. But at the time, I thought marketing was advertising. I literally thought it was like, make television ads, and that's it. And of course, we all know that that's not true. And in fact, every day, some other remit adds to marketing in terms of like what it is and the definition of marketing. And so every day the job expands. But I actually got lucky. I met in a kind of a forum, like it's actually more of a recruiting forum, but I met someone who was the vice president of marketing at Kellogg's at the time, and he was looking for interns. And I had zero experience, but I think he must have seen something. He must have seen like, hey, this person has a personality or a trait or something. And he took a chance on me and did an internship there. And that's how the whole thing started. It was a 6-month internship, 3-month internship that turned into a 6-month internship that turned into a job offer. Finished my graduate work, and then I came back to work at Kellogg's. And then from there, it just became a series of, you know, what was the next move for me. And, you know, I grew up in marketing in the .com era, which none of you guys were around for that. But it was, think of it as the equivalent of like I'm working at a really big corporation like Kellogg's, And there's a bunch of people that are getting a ton of money for like, brand spanking new companies. And like a whole bunch of people are jumping ship from the corporations and saying, you guys are totally old school and I see you because yeah, like you guys are totally old school, you're slow, you don't make quick decisions. This is so exciting over here, an opportunity to get rich quick. We're gonna do that. And I'm an immigrant, guys. Like I don't know, if I failed, there was no going back, right? Like I'm from Lebanon, there was no going back. And so for me, I always stayed at the bigger companies, at the ones that provided a lot of safety. So I missed all the go do this little startup here, this little startup there. But my spirit is very entrepreneurial. And so I was actually the person always in a large company that was like, me, I'll do that, something new, a new product, a new this, I'll do that. And I became known for that. And so it just went from like one role to another at Kellogg's. And then the decision to leave Kellogg's was actually very hard because I loved that company so much. But I was engaged at the time to my now husband, and we were living in Chicago, and they were moving all their operations from Chicago to Michigan, and we just couldn't move to Michigan. So it was a personal decision actually to stay in Chicago, and that's how I entered PepsiCo, and I was there for 14 years. And then from there to retail, because the gist of it is because as I started to look at the future of marketing, to me, it didn't look like consumer packaged goods. It looked more like, people who own their data. It looked like e-com. It looked like all the stuff that actually, at the time, the consumer packaged goods companies didn't have. And so it was actually the first time in my career that I had made a sort of a risky decision at the time, because I went to Toys R Us, which retail was dying at the time. Toys R Us had been 13 years in kind of a distressed situation, and I wanted to save Jeffrey the giraffe, And so I went to try to help do that, and the company went away. And so you can imagine, I mean, for any of you guys who are not from the US, I remember telling my parents who were in Lebanon that I was leaving PepsiCo, this place that they were so proud of, right? That, my daughter works at PepsiCo. And I said to them, I'm going to work at Toys R Us. And I will never forget, my mom was like, you're going to do what? Like, you're going to work in a store? And I was like, Mom, I'm going to sit on the leadership team of this $13, $14 billion company. She just could never understand how I would leave one and go to the other. But anyway, and then from there into financial services, where I've been the last 6.5 years. So really incredible. I've just been very fortunate that along the way, I've just met enough people and become known for certain things in the industry that I've just been able to, move from one thing to another. But I don't like to move too much. So like I tell the folks at JPMC that I've like found my home. I really, and particularly at this stage of my career and in my life, like it's hard to join a new company. It's hard within a large company to go from one team to another, let alone to a brand new company. So for me, I tend to be the kind of person that tries to stay a little bit longer somewhere just so that I can actually get results. And so, but here I am.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, marketing was the love at first sight, I believe.
Yeah,
Because you didn't know,
it
and
really was.
an immigrant girl looking for an internship, doesn't know what she wants to do. Can anyone relate to that? Right? I think you're creating hope for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, there is hope. There is hope. It sometimes seems really, really hard. And it seems like there is no hope, and you cold call people or reach out to people, and like some people give you a chance and some people don't give you a chance. But I think my advice would be to keep at it, like, because someone will see the potential in you that you see in yourself that will, frankly, like change the trajectory of your life.
So now we are celebrating Women History Month. I can't believe in 2025 we're still doing that.
I know.
It means we haven't fixed the problem. But let's talk about, you sit at the helm of, a large, highly regulated company, one of the largest banks, in a C-suite. Every day is full of peaks, challenges, and valleys, and peaks and valleys, challenges, opportunities. Being a mother also of a young, beautiful daughter. Women in this room, how do they look at you and say, you know what, how do I really overcome that? I think there is a competitive disadvantage we have created for women and working mothers. How do you deal with those challenges and opportunities that come every single day?
Yeah, well, if I had 10 hours, the stories would not be enough, honestly. And I also think, even if you're not a woman dealing with this, if you are, I talk a lot about people who are single, who have no families, and in corporate environments, we also disadvantage them a little bit because we say, oh, well, you don't have a family, so you can stay as late as possible, right? Well, that's not true. You have a life, right? You may not have a family, but you have a life, you have other things. And so I would, hopefully I can give you some advice to think about it through that lens, even if you're not sitting here as a mom, as a woman in the corporate world, although that does have its challenges. And I think I'll tell an interesting story. I worked for an incredible woman named Indra Nui, who was at the time that I was at PepsiCo, was the chairman and CEO of the firm. Also immigrant from India, had 2 beautiful daughters, was married, mom, I think believe at the time her mom lived with them. So, I would always look up to her and say like, wow, she's magic, right? Like she does all this stuff. It's incredible. How does she do it? And she got asked in a meeting once where it was all women. She got asked in a meeting, what's your take on work-life balance? And I'll never forget her answer because at the time I was shocked. I was young, I was impressionable, and I was shocked. And now I totally understand what she's saying. But she said, there's no such thing. There's actually no such thing as work-life balance. Like those 2 things are very different things in and of themselves, and they demand so much of you that's different in and of themselves. And so, and I was like, oh, I can't work here anymore. Because I want balance in my life. And if the top of the organization is saying there's no such thing, then I don't belong here. And then I started listening to her more and understanding what she was saying. And basically what she really was saying, which I believe, is there's a moment in time for everything that puts everything else out of balance. Like, for example, I'm deciding to be here right now. Well, you know what that means? Is I'm not doing something at work. And so I've chosen that this is the priority, right? I don't have my phone on me. If my daughter, God forbid, needs something from me, she's not going to find me. I've made that decision right now because I made the decision to be present with you. So from a work-life balance perspective, the life part right now is not happening here in this room, right? And so I think if you can think about it in that way and how you prioritize the things that are important to you when they are important and make those decisions, it becomes a little bit easier. And so, but it's not easy. And so like, I'll give you an example, even now. I was talking to some folks the other day about this. So you would think I'm the chief marketing officer of JPMorganChase. There's 4,000 marketers around the world. I'm like, 2 down from Jamie Dimon, our chairman and CEO. Like it's like you think that I have my life in order and I get to make all the decisions on my life. My daughter is a high school senior. In the fall, she had her last volleyball season. And she said to me one day, Mom, this particular game is really important. I really need you to come to it. And I said to her, wow, Noor, I can't come to that meeting. I can't come to that game, to that match, because I have an all-day leadership team meeting and I'm presenting something. And she was like, Mom, like it's such an important game. And she never really tells me that, but it was to her a really, really important game. And I made the decision to go to do this meeting. And the meeting, by the way, was at the exact same time that her game was going to start. And it was a 15-minute update to my colleagues. Okay. And I was, no, it's really, really important. I've got to do this. And so, but I woke up in the morning, I said, good luck on the game. She went to school. And the entire time that I was sitting in this leadership team meeting, it started at like 8:30. I was so upset. I was so upset. I was like, I cannot believe I'm not going to go to her game. I can't, she's a senior. I know this is wrong, but what would have been the solution? Just tell somebody to switch a time with me. My own colleagues, not anyone that's like higher than me or like my own colleagues. So there was a moment, there was a break, and I was talking to one of my bosses and I said, she's like, how's it going? I said, oh God, and I told her the story. She said, wait, why don't you just change the time? Like talk earlier, it's 15-minute update, like move it from 3 o'clock to right after this break if you want. And I was like, God, I can do that, like I can actually do that. And so we did, I gave the 15-minute update, I got in the car, you know, in time to see her match. I did not tell her that I was going. I get to the, you know, to the court, to the gym at school. She turns around, sees me, her eyes light up, and, you know, it's a beautiful moment, of course. But here's my point, like, even me, who has however many years of experience under my belt, who leads a huge team, who knows in my head that I actually can do that. I can go to a colleague and say, hey, can you just switch the agenda a little bit because I've got to go see my kid? I didn't do it. And so we do that all the time. And it wasn't until somebody else gave me that permission. But the reality is that you don't need that permission from somebody else. So you don't have to do it all the time, and you don't want to abuse it because then you don't want to be known as that person. But if you do it every once in a while, the work-life balance conversation becomes less about how do I balance work and life, and how do I prioritize certain things in my life, whether they are work or whether they are personal, at any given moment. And so it's not easy. It's very hard to be a woman. It's very hard to be a mom because you feel guilty. You feel like if I, you know, always ask for the excuse, or if I always ask to change the agenda, or if I always, then are they gonna think I'm serious about work? And then you add to it, like in my head as an immigrant, the like, no, everything has to be perfect. I have to get it right. I have to do well. I have to be successful, because I'm not just successful for me. I'm successful for my parents, and I'm successful for a whole bunch of family members that don't even like, you know, I don't even barely talk to, but I'll say my cousin works at, right? And so I just think, you know, to think about how to manage and balance that is very hard. But my advice would be, you have to, and you just have to decide what is important to you. And to me, that's the biggest thing as a leader. You have to decide what is important to you, because I was, even the couple of hours leading up to when I had that conversation at the break, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
In
Mind
the
somewhere
room,
else.
my mind was somewhere else, so I wasn't even good for my colleagues. I had made the decision to be in the meeting, but I was like so upset that I wasn't gonna, you know, be there. All I could think of is, oh my gosh, she's gonna be so sad, and I can't believe I let her down and all that. And so I just think, like, as leaders, we have to be very clear what is important to us, make sure our teams know, make sure our colleagues know, don't abuse it, and just have the confidence to be able to say, sometimes, like, you know, sometimes work is gonna take over, and sometimes life is gonna take over, and that's okay. But
But
it's
I think the
not-
playground is very unfair. I totally understand.
very
And this is one success story you shared,
Yeah.
but there are so many regrets that I missed this, I missed this.
Yes.
And if there was a man, it could be easily that, hey, I had to go and.
Oh,
you know,
100%, and you don't even like, you know, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I can tell you 10 hours of stories where I've regretted stuff. I've missed weddings of cousins where I've said, you know, the CEO's coming for a visit, you know, and so I've gotta be there for it, but I don't have to be there for it. Like, did I really have to be there for it? Like, I missed the wedding of a cousin, like one of my closest cousins, and she will never forget that I wasn't there. I will never forget that I wasn't there. I sent my husband and my daughter to go to that, and, you know, they had a really good time, and to this day, they talk about it when they were in Italy and they went to Manette's wedding and I wasn't there, and it's a joke, and ha ha ha, you know. And, you know, my mom passed away recently, and so many times where I chose to, you know, not call her because I was like in a meeting for something, you know, like and because the pressure is so on to be the, you know, to be equal to the men, right? Who in many cases, right, we still have, like, women still take care of the home. I have a husband who's incredible, guys. He's incredible. He cooks, he's super present for our daughter, he's great. But, you know, I still take a bigger role in the house than he does, so it still has an impact on me. And so I do every single time have to make the decision of how am I going to be perceived if I don't come to this meeting and I say I did something for my kid or for my home or whatever. And Tariq never, my husband's name is also Tariq, never has to worry about that, ever.
My daughter says that fathers do babysitting and mothers do parenting. So, which is funny, and you know, and we very conveniently say when we have with our own kids and our babysitting.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I removed that from Tariq's vocabulary a long time ago, because I told him, I said, you're doing a disservice to yourself by saying you're babysitting Noor. I mean, at the end of the day, you're her dad, like, you're hanging out with her.
You
just
don't
like
get
that.
Okay, so let's talk about, as a leader.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of traits that leaders need, not all of them, we have all of them. But, vision, resilience, transparent communication.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what are some of the most important, because you yourself are a leader and you've worked with some incredible leaders. What do you think are the most important traits that you look for when you're working with leaders?
It's a great question. I think at the top of the list, I would say for sure, having a vision, like setting a vision, helping people understand what they're driving towards, having a very, very clear purpose is really, really important. I don't think I've seen any leader be successful without, and particularly as their organizations become bigger and bigger, and you don't know who all the people are in your organizations, like it becomes really, really important to, be very clear about what you're asking the team to do. So the vision and the purpose of everything they want to do, but followed very quickly by a plan. So, we talk a lot about, like execution, eating strategy every day for lunch, right? You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't actually know how to execute that strategy, then like, what do you have? You have nothing. You just have a bunch of words on a piece of paper. And so I think some of the best leaders are able to not only articulate the vision, but set the plan for exactly how we're going to execute that vision. Really, really important. I think putting the right people in place and not being afraid that you have folks on your team that are smarter than you, right? There are a lot of leaders do not understand the power of putting people that are really incredible on their teams, because in a lot of cases, they're actually scared of it. Oh my gosh, I've got someone on my team who might actually be better than me. Like, are they going to take my job? Well, yeah, they should take your job, because that means that you did a great job and you're on to the next thing, right? And your team can come in. So building the right bench, super important from a leadership perspective. But the things that I would say for me have been probably in addition to those, where I've seen myself be most successful and others be really successful, is empathy and authenticity. And we don't talk a lot about it in leadership up until COVID. It's really interesting, right? So particularly as a woman, how many of you guys, as particularly the women in the room, have been told you're too nice? Show of hands, too nice. Yeah, majority of the women here. And if you're not, you're the polar opposite word. Let's not use it in the room, right?
You all get it.
You all get it. You're either too nice or you're, we're never like right down the middle, right? And so, but during COVID, what I thought was really, really interesting was, I would always be told I'm too nice. I'm too nice. You're too nice, Carla. You're too nice. I'm like, no, I'm not too nice. I'm empathic. And there's a big difference between empathy and niceness, right? Like the definition of empathy itself is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, understanding where they come from, right? So that you can help solve problems with them, for them, so that you can help them think differently, etc., so that you maybe change your mind, right? And so, but that has not, and by the way, there's some really hard, very empathic discussions that happen as a leader, right? And so it's not being nice, it's being empathic, it's knowing like what someone else is going through. It's being attuned to the fact that someone on your team who's usually very bubbly and very happy and very whatever is showing up actually very quiet, and being a leader that says, can we talk? Are you okay? Like, is everything okay? Like, I'm sensing something, and giving people the room for that. And during COVID, people started talking more about empathic leaders, like, oh yeah, you know what? That's what we need right now, is a lot of empathy, because we went through a moment. But that has always been very important, I think. Like when I think about the best leaders, even, the one that I have the fortune of working for, Jamie Dimon, is empathic, and so, every once in a while, we all say things that we like don't sound empathic, but like, for the most part, we are. And then authentic. And I think those are the best kind of leaders, are authentic.
Let's stick to this, since you mentioned Jamie Dimon,
Yeah.
and he's one of my favorite as well.
Yeah.
And something recently happened that made it even more.
Yeah.
The whole world right now is in the decision making of D&I.
Yeah.
And Jamie and your company, your organization, pushed back on that. How do you make these bold decisions, which are not very popular as a leader?
I think it's easy when you have a vision, when you have a purpose, when you have a vision, when you know what you stand for, when you have very clear values of the company, and that's what we have. And so whatever you call it, whether you call it E or E or I or O or X or Y or Z, whatever you call it, choose to call it whatever you want to call it. Whatever administration decides to call it, whatever they want to call it. At the end of the day, what we see, and we have always seen, no matter what you call it, is opportunity. And so, and opportunity for everybody to thrive in our organization. And, you know, putting in front of people those opportunities to be able to move from one job to another, to be able to be tapped on the shoulder to do something different, to be able to be asked to lead a group of people. And so we've always thought about it that way. We've always thought about, you know, every single person, the 300 and some thousand people that work at the firm, we want to give them the opportunity. When you want to give people opportunity, you've got to give them opportunity on equal footing. And so that's how we.
So you're not decommitting from the main cause, which is very
We
important.
never have.
Yeah.
There are going to be some things that you can't talk about anymore, right? Like that if it's something illegal, you're not going to do something illegal, right? As a company, you're still, you know, licensed to operate. And so, you know, I think, and I actually think that's what most organizations are grappling with right now. Not just ours, is, you know, is when somebody changes one tiny thing or says, you know, something different because again, it's no longer legal to track something or say something or whatever, the headlines are like, oh, people are walking away from. But I don't think most people are walking away from, you know, from doing the right thing. And certainly at JPMorganChase, we are not walking away from doing the right things. Might we look at things and say, wow, we, you know, skew too far on something? Sure. But at the end of the day, and might we call something different because we have to? Sure. But at the end of the day, for us, it's opportunity. We're giving everybody equal opportunity. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. So let's switch gear to marketing. You work in classic marketing companies, the PepsiCo, the Kellogg, and the Toys R Us. And now financial services, very regulated.
Yeah.
You've been a classic marketer.
Yeah.
With the advent of artificial intelligence, technology, what do you see the future? Is the classic marketing relevant, or where's the balance?
Yeah.
You know, look at the pendulum.
It's such an exciting time for marketing. It's so interesting, you know, when I reflect on like what's going on right now, I don't see it as an either or. To me, it's a complete and. And so, yes, AI, generative AI in particular, because we've been using AI for a long time, actually, at the firm, and a lot of people have, whether it's in marketing or customer service or in how we think about our products, we've been using AI for and large language models and machine learning for a long time. But the generative AI is the thing that is changing the game for us in marketing in two ways, I'd say. In one bucket, it's changing the game from an efficiency standpoint. So it's allowing us, honestly, to like remove some of the really mundane things that we, that we have to do. We're a large operation. You can imagine we send, just in emails, we send 5 billion emails out every single year, just in emails. And, you know, we've got 10 lines of businesses, so like it's, you know, it's big. But, you know, what Gen AI is allowing us to do is remove some of the like really manual work that we do. We have a lot of manual work that happens in our marketing. And so that's really allowing us to like be much faster, and actually is starting to help us actually be more effective. So it started off as an efficiency play, now helping us to be more effective. So if you look at some of the work that we do, we have teams that write articles, like thought leadership articles for us, both on the consumer side of the business and on the wholesale side of the business. And it's really interesting because it's taken, you know, we have writers on our team. On average, if they're writing an article historically about, you know, like, I don't know, make it up, like how to save money, for example, it takes like a good 7-8 days, right, to write the article, to get it right, to think about it. Now it takes, all of like maybe half an hour to think about your prompt, right? Because the prompt obviously is very important. So takes maybe a half an hour to think about the prompt, maybe takes about a day to edit, like truly edit, and then it posts. And so we've been able to do more. And we've seen that as it gets smarter and smarter, it's actually been able to be much more effective. So we've seen huge lifts in search engine optimization. We've seen huge lifts in conversion as a result of stronger SEO. And so very excited about that. The next thing now is actually how to use it to really kind of change the game from a creative standpoint and a lot of other things that we are doing. And so if I go back to your question, your specific question on do I think sort of traditional marketing is dead? I don't, because I still think when we think about consumers, they tell us like they want as much, digital consumption of our marketing, if you will, as they do in live and in-person things. And so for us, we are doubling down on value add live events. For example, we double down on, when you go to an event, the access that you can have if you're one of our credit card members, that's all live. And how we turn that into content that we can then leverage online, we do. But there's a lot of, people still love to hear stories at the end of the day. Why are you guys here? Maybe I have a story that like resonates with you, And so I think at the end of the day, that's still because the creativity around storytelling is still so critical. How we deliver it, sure, we can deliver it faster, we can deliver it in more channels, we can deliver it, and some jobs maybe will go away, but I think that it's really a combination of this notion of what we call at JPMorganChase in marketing, heart and science. So this idea that we've never had more science, we've never had more data, we've never had the ability to like do things fast, etc., and be really smart. At the end of the day, we are people, not numbers, people. So we've got to tug at your heartstrings. We've got to make sure whatever we do is important and relevant to you. We've got to make sure that when we create something that we post on anywhere, that one of you guys actually thinks it's either funny or like is touched by it, hopefully not pissed off by it, but enough to share it, and that at the end of the day is still the humanity of marketing. So I don't think that goes away.
So I'm a client of Chase,
Yeah.
And I'll give you my feedback later.
Yeah.
Some of the time. But more than the banking industry, retail banking,
Yeah.
the brick and mortars, this generation doesn't they haven't visited a bank in ages anymore.
Yeah.
What do you see the future of this retail banking, and the shift towards the wealth management for
Yeah.
for the people?
Yeah.
How would this be disruptive?
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised how many people walk into banks, and even at certain age. I'm actually curious. Do any of you guys go into banks?
Yeah.
We do. You'd be so surprised how many wealth management accounts we open. How much of the other part of our business is actually done through our branches. The branch network actually surprisingly is very, very, very powerful for us. We actually talk about it internally. We say everyone benefits from the branches because they really do. Having said that, there is no doubt about it that there is digital disruption. There's no doubt about it. There's also no doubt about it that there are certain cohorts of people that will not walk into a bank. But I will tell you that what we're seeing more and more is it's not generational. It's more depending on where they are in their life in terms of how much money they have. And so the more money you accumulate, whether you're 25 or whether you're 50, the more needs you are going to have. And the more needs you're going to have around wealth management and housing and all the other stuff that comes with actually having more. The more you want the branches, the more you want bankers, the more you want people that you can trust. If it's just money management, moving money from one person to another, I need to, send you money here or whatever. Some of the more digital options are actually where people spend a lot of their time, and they're not fee-based. And so you can see so it's less like, is it a generational thing? We're seeing it's much more level based. And so, but it doesn't negate the fact that you have, and you watch them, trust me. But it doesn't negate the fact that you've got the Cash Apps of the world and the PayPals and the, you name them, the Chines, et cetera, that are making it very easy for customers to actually do business, to transact, and they, look like this, right? And so, but what we've seen is as people's needs become more complicated, they migrate into the more sort of traditional, what you would call that. And so what we have to figure out,
Right.
as a legacy brand, is how do we get those people to be comfortable early on, not seeing us as, the expensive, the only for the rich, only for the, so we do a lot of work there on the cohort that actually we call starters, on the cohort that we really want to get early on.
I'm sure you're very preemptive that your next competitors are now the traditional banks.
Yeah.
They're the Alibabas and Alipays and,
Yeah, for sure.
all these companies, they are coming
Yeah.
through.
They are, and we put a lot of effort, right, into payment, because you've got to think about, I don't know about you guys, but once you put your card into your wallet, into your digital wallet, like that's it. Like adding another one or changing it, or like I'm always fascinated by people who in their Apple Pay actually change in their wallet. I'm like, really? Wow, you're like the first person I've seen that's done that, right? Like usually you have one card or whatever, and that's it. That's the method of payment. And so getting into someone's wallet early is really, really, really important. And that is where there has been a massive amount of disruption, and we're putting a tremendous amount of investment and time there.
I'm not looking for brownie points, but my wallet, 6 cards, 3 of them are Chase.
I'll say brownie.
Okay,
Stars.
yeah. So let's talk about your roommate.
My roommate, yeah.
She's married to a wonderful person who was here last year, Tariq Hassan, who's the chief marketing officer of McDonald's. So very marketing. Who's a better marketer?
I hear he said I was, but did he say?
No, he didn't. He wants you to stay married, as you said.
Yeah.
But he did say you don't talk marketing at home. Is
We
that true?
don't. Actually, he's 100%, and we decided that really early on. Because what, who wants to go home and talk about work, and especially when it's like work with the person that does the same exact work that you do? Oh my God, And so we decided very early on, no one's gonna talk about, we're not gonna talk about marketing. We do every once in a while now, it seeps through. I will tell you also, historically, nobody knew we were married. Even though like our names are the same name, it's really strange, but we would on purpose not show up at the same events. So I would choose which conferences to go to, and he would choose other ones. Like we just wanted to totally keep it separate. It's become very hard, obviously, for obvious reasons. Like as our jobs have gotten bigger and bigger, and as we have become more public in the industry, it's become really hard. So now everybody knows we're married. Who's the better marketer? I think he is better at taking risks in general. And I think, so, I mean, I would say he has a few more years on me. That just means he's older than me. So we're gonna give him credit, being a better marketer. But I would say we're different marketers.
So I think, and this is my personal
I think
perspective.
he's phenomenal. Like I'm in awe of the work that he does.
Yeah. And I think his approach, yes, I do understand that he's
Yeah.
boring. As a marketer, right, and two women, I think they're gifted with creativity and thinking more horizontally,
Yeah.
and sometimes a more vertical approach. Do you think as a marketer, there are differences in gender, how they approach
Well, that's a good
marketing and
question. I don't know that I've ever been asked that question. Probably just inherently in the way that like men and women solve problems.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so like, I think that, yeah, maybe there is actually. And it's funny you asked that. I don't even know that it's just men and women, but I do think everybody brings their experiences to the table, right? Like that's why I always say that the more diverse people you have sitting in a meeting, the better, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember specifically when I first got to Toys R Us, the CEO there said to me, before you got here, we were sitting in a meeting about Babies R Us. and we were talking about what moms need, and there wasn't a mom in the room.
Typical man approach.
But you,
We forgot mom.
like, right, the minute you put a mom in the room, more than one mom in the room, it changes, because that makes her more comfortable speaking. It changes the perspective because the insights you have are very different. And so I do think that, yeah, men and women will be very different, particularly because their journey to get to the seat at the table that they have has been very, very different, right? And so, you know, we recently did some work on our purpose. We wrote the purpose of our firm, and we wrote values for the firm, and you know, and when I look at the work that we've done, there's no doubt about it. It has my fingerprints all over it, right? As a woman, as a hard worker, as an immigrant, as a mother, it is full of emotions that I bring to the table. I do think so.
I can, looking at the campaign, I can tell that you worked on it.
Yeah.
I can't scientifically prove this, but I believe that men dream in black and white and women dream in color.
Well,
So that's my approach. Let's,
we should help try to prove that for you.
yeah, it's very science, you know, by training. I'm gonna open up for students as well, but I have a couple of quick questions.
Yeah.
Let's talk about people who are sitting in the audience. What advice do you have for them? Because they're all, you know, right now working on their graduation, their courses. What are some of the traits that you're looking for in hiring people?
It's a great
What, you know, how can this stand out?
Yeah, curiosity, like being really, really, really curious, I think is a huge trait for me. So I don't as much look at somebody's like experience in terms of like check the box, do you have all the marketing experiences, but I do look at the traits. And the traits, one is absolute curiosity. Can you come into a business and can you learn the business? Can you be curious about it, no matter what it is? How can you learn the business? And so, you know, I always say to my team, marketing is not, it's not a popularity contest. Yes, we make beautiful things, but it's not a popularity contest. It's actually there to drive the business growth. And you can't drive business growth unless you absolutely understand what drives the business. And so I look very much for curious people. I look for people that understand how to work with others. And so, look, in our world, we talk about matrix organizations, and some things, you know, you have the accountability, but you don't have the responsibility, all this stuff. But how do you work with other people? You know, are you a person that can, and that to me is like a true trait of a leader. Can you work with people who have different points of view than you? Can you accept people that have different points of view than you? Can someone change your mind? Right? Not always, you don't want to be wishy-washy, but if you hear something that's really interesting, that is different than what you think, will it make you rethink? Can you be flexible? Like, how do you work with people is really, collaborate with people is very, very important. To me, kindness is very important. How you treat people is really, really, really important. We talk a lot about that at JPMC. Jamie talks a lot about that. You know, we don't want to hire, you know, people who are not nice. Kindness is important, and you know, and I think the best leaders are leaders who are kind, actually, at their heart. And so, curiosity, collaboration, kindness, and the last thing I would say is this, like, just this go get them attitude. This idea that like, I'll solve a problem. Doesn't matter. I'll solve it. Put my hand up, I'll solve it. Like when I get asked, like, how did I get here? It's because I became known for, if you have a problem, just give it to Carla. She'll solve it. Even if she doesn't know what to do with it, she'll say, I got it. And so, you know, like really, really like attack a problem, solve it, be known for being a problem solver. Be known for like raising your hand, leaning in, being the person that'll get it done, I think is really important.
I believe that looking at your personality, I think you have a lot of resilience.
Yeah.
You didn't talk about it, but I have a feeling I may be wrong.
Yes.
When you're a woman at work, you have to prove it twice.
Yes, 3 times.
When you are a woman of color, you have to multiply it, keep multiplying it, right? And every single day, and you're in the industry which is older big boys,
Yeah.
you know, on PMS, paid, mail, and stale. where you have to fight it. You just can't fight that being nice, right? So talk about the trait that throughout your career that you really have pushed back
Yeah.
and stood for and then got you here.
Yeah. I'm gonna start with a couple of, the story is not the right word thing, but I think it's important that you guys need to know context. So I grew up in the Middle East. I was born in Lebanon. I was raised in Dubai. Moved here to the US. And I moved here in 1990. Many of you guys weren't even born then, but like moved here in 1990. The first Gulf War, as we called it. People hated folks like me. I had a very strong accent. And literally people say like, what's your name? I'd say Carla Zakem, because that's my name, Carla Zakem, that's my name. And people would say, Zakem, what? And they'd
Yeah, Carla is
spit
fine.
my name. Carla's fine.
Yeah.
Carla's not dangerous, but Zakem, what the hell is that, right?
And then you adopted Hassan.
Well, then I adapted Hassan, exactly. And very early on, I mean, people would say things like, go back to where you came from, you're just a sand N-word, like things like that. Like, really don't upset Carla, she'll go to her car and get her bombs and like the craziest stuff. And I was young, I was in university. And for me, the way that I overcame that was actually, I would look in the mirror, I'm like, wait, I pass as a nice white girl from Cleveland. So we should play that up. And that's for the longest time what I was. I never talked about who I was. I never talked about I was Zakem.
You've done that cycle.
Carla Zakem.
Yeah.
Right? My accent, unless I'm pissed off at my daughter or someone else, or unless I'm super tired, or unless I'm talking to another Arab, the accent doesn't come out. But the minute I'm talking to another Arab, the accent comes out. My daughter's like, Mom, what is that? Who are you and why did that happen?
Which one is my mom?
Literally, if Noor was here right now, she'd be rolling her eyes laughing because that's what happens every time. She's like, what just happened? Like, really? You need that accent? But that's my accent. I dream in Arabic. I think in Arabic, like all the stuff, right? But I was able to suppress all of that and not have to like do that. And I had this accent and people didn't know, and it was like, life was so good until it wasn't. Because at some point you wake up and you're like, oh my God, you're such a farce. Like you literally are a total hypocrite. I was becoming like higher and higher as a leader. And I would talk about authenticity and people had no clue about my story. Nothing, they knew nothing about me. So for like years and years and years, I was not actually my authentic self, but I made it through corporate America. I'm convinced because of that, because anytime somebody found out I was Arab, they would immediately assume that I was Muslim, which I'm not. Immediately, they would assume I'm Muslim. I'm like, wow, really? And then they immediately assumed that I didn't drink because I was Muslim, like literally, and they would treat me different. They'd be like, we're not gonna have drinks at this event, right? No one would even ask me if I wanted to drink. Like, it was very strange. And so you feel people different. You feel that there's people in the room that are like, oh, she's Arab, there's gonna be certain things we can't say around her, right? Once people knew. So like the environment changes when people know who you really, really are. And so your point about like, if you're a woman, there is a day. If you're a woman of color, there's a day. By the way, for the longest time, I never said I was a woman of color. I am a woman. Absolutely I am, right? And then in an industry that you're not native in, I sit in rooms even today, 6.5 years later, and I'm like, which one of these is not like the other? It's me, right? It's me. I'm not like him. So I have massive, what's that syndrome? The like imposter syndrome. But here's the thing that is crazy about it. I could get away with it. Many of you guys in this room can't. I'm looking at you and you can't. Like, you are who you are, like, right? Like, there's nothing visible that would tell anybody that I'm anything but this nice white girl from Cleveland, unless you knew my story. And so I started going like, what are you giving back to people if you're not telling your story? If you're not actually saying like, I want to advocate for people who are different like me. And so I've spent the last however many years of my career telling my story more broadly, more openly, being very much who I am more openly, because it only will help others who are like me, who can't pretend they're the nice white girl from Cleveland.
Well, I have to say, and we're going to open up for a question for the students, that it's very gratifying to share the story now, because you learn how to fail. And I think you succeeded in failing and then getting and learning from that. So it's very important.
But it's awful, right? Because the feeling of like I'm succeeding because I'm hiding something is actually really awful. But I do go back to your point on resilience, and I would actually tell you that is probably one of my superpowers, is that I just keep going. Even on days, like today is a day when like something happened at work and I'm like, you know what, can we just go on spring break already? Do you know what I mean? Like, but it's like, no, because I'm not just fighting for myself.
I see how relaxed you are being with the students.
I'm not fighting for myself, right? I'm fighting for like the teams. I'm fighting like, and so if the cause is bigger than me now, whether it's internal or external, and that's why I'm so open.
Okay, so we have 10 minutes. Let's keep the question short. Ekta, let's start with you.
Carla, thank you so much for coming and for making time for us. My name is Ekta. I'm in my second year pursuing Masters in Integrated Marketing in Professor Khan's class. My question is, the role of a CMO has evolved from a storyteller to a business driver, and some would even argue that CMOs are the next wave of CEOs. So based on your journey, what's been the most non-marketing skill that shaped your leadership? And I know you shared with us the nitbits that we can develop in us, but one particular thing that you would want to share.
Financial acumen. You got to understand the P&L. You got to understand what the drivers of the business are. You've got to understand what the levers of the P&L are. It is so important. So many marketers, I would say so many functional heads, like so many functional folks, do not appreciate that. And they stay in their silo and they stay doing the things that they only are good at, right? As opposed to understanding, like when I say I want more marketing dollars for something, what impact does that have to the business's P&L? And understanding what that impact is really, really important. It gives you credibility with the CFO, gives you credibility with the CEO. And so I would say if you take one thing, it's financial acumen. Now, as marketers, we've had to become better product leaders, better technology leaders. Like I spend most of my time having conversations about marketing technology. So I've got to know what all the new platforms are. I've got to know. So the job of marketing, definitely I've had to expand more than just the creative or just the digital piece or just the media or sponsorships or all the things that you would have defined historically as marketing. But I would say nothing else, financial acumen, know the business.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. This has been so incredible to hear your insights. I have a question about, so within financial services, I'm sure you have a lot of dynamic customers, such as you said, like you have the early ons, you have a more developed clientele. How do you maintain the mission and values of your firm while trying to communicate with these variety of customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think understanding what parts of our purpose and our values are important to each customer group and customer segment is really important, right? And so when you're talking about a starter, what are their understanding of deeply, what are their fears, what are they worried about, right? Like if you think about somebody that's like out of college, what are the things, the dynamics like that they worry about? What are their needs? What are their desires? And then what do we provide from a products and services standpoint that can help them? But then how do you wrap it in a wrapping paper story that feels like it's more values driven? Because that's important to them. There are some people, some segments of our customers, they don't care about any of that. All they want is keep my money safe, make me more money, whatever it is. Like, so once you understand the motivations of who the customer or the client is and what they want, it becomes a lot easier to say what elements and parts of our values and our business, in addition to the products and services that we have, can we put together for them to make it more meaningful and more engaging for them? It's a great question.
Reza, and then I'm going to come back.
Yes. Hi, Carla. Thank you so much for coming here. It's wonderful having you here. I'm Reza from Indonesia. I have two questions. The first, I'm currently building my financial technology startup in Indonesia, and I want to know your advice on. The first question is, what are some of the best practices for launching a new financial product in a competitive market? And then the second question is, what is the biggest marketing lesson you learned as a CMO of JPMorganChase?
The answer for both is actually the same, ironically, which is know your customer. Like, what are you solving for? Like, don't get caught up in the like, oh, I have a new widget. Oh, I have a new like cool thing that I want to like show them or whatever. Like, what do they want? Like, what solutions are you solving? If you put the customer at the heart of every single thing, whether they're a business customer, like a client, or whether they're actually a consumer customer, if you put them at the heart of everything that you do and understand them intimately, you will build the best solutions for them. And the same thing in marketing. Whenever we have done anything that doesn't resonate, like deeply, deeply resonate, it's something that we decided that, oh, we think is cool, so we want to talk about, but no one cared about it, it didn't work. Whenever you care deep, you say something like, we have a product called Credit Journey, very, very simple. It tells you your credit score. Like, it's super simple and it's free and you can check it every single day and it doesn't change your credit score. It's awesome. And we thought it was going to be this like little thing. It has generated so millions and millions of accounts because people like deeply want it. They want to know, what is their credit score? Is it a healthy credit score? And if it's not a healthy credit score, how can we help them make it healthy, right? And we do. So now we're adding to Credit Journey and saying, how do we get Credit Journey to be something that actually helps customers and says, before your score even goes down or before you even know your score went down, we tell you, hey, Reza, your score went down. Like, here are ways to bring it back up, right? Because we know you're saving for X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Customer at the heart of everything you do, marketing, or your business, and whatever.
Chris, and then we'll go over to you after that.
I don't know why everybody calls me that, but Nick.
Nick.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a common Nick to Chris. I get a lot. How you doing? Thank you for coming. My name is Nicholas. I'm in Tariq Khan's, Professor Khan's class as well. I know a lot of people have questions about the business, but me personally, it's like career-wise, just figuring out what I want to do. You've been in different industries and involved with different things. In this day and age, I know you said you have a daughter as well, so you're probably thinking about, how do I give her the best advice in terms of internships for college?
Yeah.
And then when she's a young professional, what advice would you give to somebody seeking to eventually be in a C-suite level position or a higher position, but kind of starting off or at the beginning of their position? What areas would you tell them to focus on, or what internships, management trainee programs, like what would you tell them to?
It's a good question. It really depends on what you're like, what you want to do, right? Like, so if you know that you want to, do finance, then I would give you a different answer than if you want to do marketing, than if you want to do operations, like it. So, but regardless, what I would say to you is, when you decide what you want to do, there's not a blueprint. I think people think there's a blueprint, like if you want to go into investment banking today, there is a blueprint, right? Like, you go into an analyst program, you do an internship, you go into an analyst program, et cetera, et cetera. But even that, like, even those kinds of things are changing because the world is so dynamic. So what I would say to you is, first decide, like, what kinds of things do you think you want to do? And then, you guys, it's the beginning. Like, I've been working for almost 30 years. Like, it wouldn't have mattered what I did 28 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, because at some point it's the culmination of all of your experiences. So I don't want you to walk away from here thinking, I have to do a management training program, and then I have to do this internship, and I have to do that internship to get to Carla, right? Like, there are 17 different ways to get to a job that I have, but I would say, yes, management experiences are important. Finance experiences are important. Operational experiences are important. Marketing experiences are important. All the different kinds of functions that get you well-rounded enough to eventually be a CEO of something or whatever, unless you want a focused functional path. Like, I am a focused functional path. Someone may come and tell me to be a CEO. I hope they don't, because I really love marketing. Not that I don't want to be a CEO, but like I love what I do. And so for me, I've chosen that path, and everything I've done has been in that, in marketing, whether it's market research, whether it's like strategy, whatever it is, right? If I wanted to be much more on a general management path, probably would have done things differently than I did, in
I
job.
think
So
it'll make a smart CEO. We'll take one last question.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. My name is Emily, and I'm a third semester student in the integrated marketing program. And I was just curious how at JPMorganChase you manage really knowing the customer when there's so many different sectors, and how you prioritize your time and investment. in different sectors.
yeah, it's again, a great question. We have the luxury of being really big, so we have really big teams, but I would say that the philosophy doesn't change, right? Whether you're in a small organization or a large organization, whether you have 2 customer, segments, or whether you have 100 customer segments, like it all, I think the philosophy on how you think about prioritization doesn't change. And again, I'm gonna go back to what I said, is the insights are really, 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 really important. Like understanding your customer really well is the single most important thing you can do. If I reflect on when I worked on Gatorade, we would do all the work on our athletes up front, all the work up front. We would go talk to them in high schools. We would go talk to them before they worked out, while they worked out, after they worked out. We knew them so intimately that when we created either a product or a piece of marketing communication for them, we never, ever, ever worried that it would work. Like we didn't test it afterwards. Everything was done up front. And so I think if you deeply understand who your customer is, what their motivations are, understand not just the demographic, but the psychographic components of it, it becomes much, much easier to understand the business opportunity, right? So how big are they? The other question I think you have to ask yourself all the time is there may be a gap in the market, but is there a market in that gap, right? So say it again, there may be a gap in the market, but is there a market in that gap? Sometimes there is a reason there is a gap. There may not be a big business opportunity. And so you've just got to learn to like analyze all of that ahead of creating marketing campaigns, ahead of understanding who you're going to prioritize. And once you size that opportunity based on the insights and based on the demos and the psychos and all the competitive analysis, because that's another thing, right? Like you've got to think about like what your competitors are doing, what's your right to play in there. Then you start to get to prioritize who you want to go after. Because there might be a big opportunity with starters, but like in our world, but we may not have the right to play there, right? We don't have the right products. We don't have the right, our brand doesn't fit, et cetera, et cetera. Even if it's a huge opportunity and we know everything about them, we may have to walk away and go focus on something else.
Well, I want to thank you very much for this. I'm going to give you this book I did 2 years ago.
Thank you so much.
And on behalf of Ben Bayou, thank you so much.